around Al Masjid Al Aqsa. Some of the comments we've had. Salam's anger, frustration, disappointment at the Arab world. Are they using soft power to win Israelis over? Why is the UAE, Saudis allowing this genocide, apartheid regime to kill? So there you go. That's one person's thoughts. You have your own opinions on that, and I certainly want to hear about it as we focus on Masjid Al Aqsa today. But let's now focus on in the Champion People feature, which we call it that because it's inspired by what I do at Champion South Africa with a specific goal to build South Africa into a champion nation. And for that to happen, goodness gracious, we need the people. We need the champions. We need champion people to do that. So with me is Tasneem Fredericks. I was going to say from Port Elizabeth. She's going to argue and say no, say Kabecha. She's the deputy president of the Black Management Forum, besides being in the legal space itself. So Tasneem, appreciate your time, and salam alaikum. Thanks for joining me.
Alaikum salam, and thanks for having me so much, Ashraf. Always nice to join you.
Thank you, and I think you have lots to say, and I mean that's why you have lots to share and lots to say. That's why you're talking to us, right? So tell me what you do. I said, BMF deputy president, legal person. Perhaps you can set it up for us in terms of what does Tasneem Fredericks do?
So, I run my own practice, mainly conveyancing, some commercial work, and I think the freedom of having my own practice allows me to participate in, the non-bread and butter issues, the issues that are close to my heart, the issues that talk to nation building. I've been involved with the Black Management Forum for over 16 years. I've led the organization from a branch level, provincial level, and then national as a company secretary to about 4 presidencies. So, the fact that I can, allow myself to have leave to, schedule my diary so that I can then attend meetings that ordinarily, if I was not self-employed, I would need to ask, a superior or a boss for leave. So, the space that I work in mainly at the moment as the Deputy President of the Black Management Forum is transformation. And then I also head nationally the Women Empowerment Desk. And we look specifically at women issues. I'm meant to be, the trip's been postponed a few times, but I'm part of the Trek for Mandela with the Mbumba Foundation to end period poverty. So that's, another initiative falling under the Women Empowerment Desk. We've also made input in terms of legislation relating to the elimination of sexual harassment in the workplace with the new code. BMF has worked and inputted, and I personally, through the BMF, have made submissions on national minimum wage in 2015. So I think that's the kind of work that the BMF does, not me. Through the BMF, those are the things that we do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, certainly it gives me a sense of like, why are you a part of the BMF? I'm just trying to think about the people involved. I think Jimmy Manyi was the head of the BMF before, Bonang Mohale perhaps as well, right? And you're not just a part of it. I mean, you're in an absolute leadership position nationally. So what is it about the aims and objectives of the Black Management Forum that so resonates with Tasneem Fredericks?
I think it not only resonates with me. I mean, we have a huge membership across the country. We have a footprint in every province. And personally, having grown up during apartheid, I think it makes it even more real for me. Listening to stories of my late grandmother talking about having to, leave South End, which is probably Sapphire Town and Pitas, for people in Joburg during the forced group areas at the forced removals that happened. And it's so funny because my grandmother used to tell these stories to us as children, and how people of all races used to live together, and how the government then, with apartheid, this deliberate program of separation, forced even Black people to separate. So it wasn't only the removal of Black people from white people, but within Black people, colored people had to go to a township, Indian people went to a township, and African people went to a separate township. So the architects of apartheid made sure that there would be no unity within the Black community as such. And now I serve as a trustee of the South End Museum, which talks about memorialization and recording that history, because that is our history, that is our story, and the only people that can tell that story is us. So BMF then resonates with me on a lot of fronts. It talks to me growing up as a child. It talks to, with the new dispensation, watching Nelson Mandela come out of prison. But even before that, knowing that as a Black person in South Africa, even though, our family wasn't political, it's very hard to ignore the fact that we knew that we were being subjugated. We knew that the education that we were given was inferior. And I come out of the tricameral system. I mean, people don't even remember that. It was House of Representatives, House of Delegates, and then there was Bantu education. And so even within Blacks, African people got the worst. And I remember that in our school, our primary school, there were very few African kids. So our interaction was very close. We lived in communities of people who looked like us, who spoke like us. There was interaction between colored people and Indian people. The Black African people who came into the Black colored and Black Indian community were the wealthy ones. They were the ones whose parents, they rocked up in a Mercedes, and then you'd say, wow, Nondu is rich because, but it wasn't something that was open to the majority demographic in this country. And I think, it's easy for people to say 27 years on, let's forget about it, let's nation build, let's be inclusive. But then you can't talk about inclusivity by excluding the historical context. I think that would be immoral to do that. That would be unfair to do that, to say, let's wipe out history and let's just start fresh. It can't happen like that.
Yeah, well, you've said so much. I can tell you, we could probably have a discussion for a whole day based on just those few minutes, but we don't have that sort of time. It does get me asking about, what's your purpose? What do you see your life purpose?
I think a life purpose changes as you progress, and I think, you laugh at me when I say this, but as I age, and my engagement with death, specifically in the last few months, starting with my father in July last year, it changes your lens, and it has brought me exponentially closer to my faith. It's made me realize that, I'm planning a life. I've got a life plan of 5 to 10 years, for example, a life plan. And when I visited my dad's grave 2 weeks ago, it really shook me. It really hit home that that perhaps we should be having a death plan. That through having a death plan and through thinking about death daily, that will inform how we engage with each other daily. When someone dies and they leave this world, the opportunity to have served them better and being nice to them is gone. The only thing you can do for them is Sadaqatul Jariyah, which then assists them. And so you need to then plan your life, because I think that, the questions that are going to be asked on the Day of Judgment is not how many followers you have on Instagram, how many charitable organizations did you start, were you well liked in the community. I think those are favors that Allah grants you because you do good. And the best way to serve Allah is to serve His creation. So I'm not saying, we should all move to a cave and read Quran the whole day. We know that even in the times of the Prophet and his Sallallahu Islam and his companions, they worked. Their wives did not have domestics. So their time was not consumed entirely with just doing Islamic obligatory things. They fitted that in with their day, like all of us do. But I think the balance should always be skewed, and we need to be conscious about this. And so while I can't speak about Islam when I'm on a platform like the BMF or whatever other Black Business Council, I think intrinsically my purpose is how do I how am I informed with my engagement with other institutions that are non-Muslim. And we know we live in a non-Muslim country, seculist, you can practice any religion, but the principles of Islam must then inform. If you're Muslim, then your engagement. People speak about the principles of Ubuntu as if khidmat and service and wanting what you want yourself for your Muslim brother and sister doesn't exist. I mean, that is essentially before Ubuntu was even, the buzzword in South Africa. You know that existed.
Well, I'll tell you what, it certainly gets me thinking, like, how do we mainstream Islamic values into mainstream society, purely because they are great human values that will change society and create the type of social justice that we need. Something for you and I to consider, Tasneem Fredericks, and I'll get to you in that response after this.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Are you looking for a cross-border road transport company that is committed in achieving high safety standards, who is fast and efficient, and also excel in customer service? Garda Global specializes in cross-border transport from South Africa to Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. Garda Global, situated at 10 Daniel Road, Benrose, Johannesburg. For inquiries, contact our trained staff on 011 614 3108 or email info@gardaglobal.co.za. Safe long haul into Africa is our business. Garda Global Transport.
My Lord, show me right from wrong.
Huda SA is an organization that focuses primarily on assisting communities within the eThekwini region by collaborating with existing Islamic centers, mosques and madrasas. Your contribution goes towards the uplifting of orphans and vulnerable children, including vulnerable families, by assisting with education, welfare, nutrition and maintenance of madrasas, mosques and Islamic community centers. Make the difference. Donate to our noble causes. More information is available at huda-int.org or WhatsApp or call us on 031 271 3049.
My Lord, show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long.
It's been a household name for years. It's been an important ingredient in South African kitchens, and it's been an affordable, healthy choice for your family. Helios. First our pure sunflower cooking oil, and now introducing Helios margarines and spreads. Following the same traditions and tastes you've grown to love and trust from Helios. Fortified with vitamins A, D, and E, also rich in omega-3 and 6 essential fatty acids for a healthy eating lifestyle. Helios margarine and spreads. Available now at all leading South African supermarkets. Helios margarine. The tradition lives on.
This Ramadan, can we still feel the heartbreak, the grief, the pain? Islamic Relief needs you to keep feeling, because the believers are like one body. When any part aches, the whole body aches. Feel their pain. From just 450 Rand, you can ease their pain this Ramadan. Donate now to Islamic Relief. Visit www.islamic-relief.org.za.
Cats. 3 cats and a kid.
This is Salam Media, and you are tuned into the Ashraf Garda Show.
Right, let's continue chatting to Tasneem Fredericks as part of the Champion People features. She's the deputy president of the Black Management Forum. She's a lawyer. She's based in the Kleiberga in the Eastern Cape. And yeah, Tasneem, so before the break, we spoke about that. How do we, you gave one or two examples about Ubuntu, and I understand that, but practically, how do we mainstream this? Without not necessarily propagating, simply providing Islamic solutions to the country, because they're solutions for all people. They just happen to be Muslim. They could have been something else.
Yeah, Ashraf, I always think that, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters more what you do. And so when you live a life that espouses the values of Islam, people are going to be drawn to it. They're going to want to know, what are these values? So, for example, in my business, I don't charge interest on overdue accounts. So when people don't pay, I say to them, listen, you've got to pay. And then they'll be like, well, then just charge me interest. And I'll be like, I don't charge interest. I need to be paid when I've done my work. And I think with the whole 2007 global crisis, when we saw this whole, destruction of the Lehman Brothers, and how that system of banking, which is basically based on bonds that didn't exist, we now see our own South African government wanting to consult with Islamic banking in terms of how they can adopt that system, because it's a more real system. It's a system that is based not on fake bonds or overpricing of the underlying security, for example. So I think that there are a lot of ways, and how we act towards non-Muslims, and even more importantly, I think for me, is how we engage with each other as Muslim. You may not want to identify as Muslim publicly because of, this international Islamophobia. People are scared to even, they live in environments where, it's difficult to be Muslim and to act Muslim just visibly on an external basis. People judge you when you wear a scarf. People judge you when you wear a scarf and have a backpack. So, there's a lot of things around that globally. But I think the most important thing is, when we are engaging with everyone, because after all, everyone is Allah's creation. And if we lead lives that inspire others, that will draw them towards Islam. It won't be a matter of us pushing our religion down anyone's throats, and I think an important aspect of Islam is also that, that element of judgmentalism. As a Muslim, we are not the judge, jury, and executioner. There's an ultimate judge. There's an ultimate day of judgment when we, we have to account. And I can be a lawyer, but I'm not going to be speaking my tongue will be speaking for me without me having, to be able to exercise the kind of control that, I can now do speaking with you. So mainstreaming and normalizing Islam is just being yourself in whatever context you find yourself in. When I'm in an environment where people are, for example, consuming alcohol, I'll say I don't drink alcohol, and they'd say, well, why don't you drink alcohol? And then I'll be like, for religious purposes. And there's nothing wrong with saying that if that is what you believe. You don't have to make up a story and say, you're recovering alcoholic and that's why you don't drink. And I think people they're not authentic to themselves. They worry, what are people going to think? They're going to think they're too conservative.
I think you're so right. Instead of saying no, thank you, I'm a teetotaler, for example, you're saying I don't consume this, and you give a reason, because I think you're entitled to the reason. Whatever that person does, not saying that is almost a cop out, right? And therefore, do you feel you personally you lead an inspired life?
I don't think that I don't consider myself to be particularly inspirational, but what I do find inspiring for myself is the people that I live around. I look at my parents, they inspire me. I look at my siblings, and I think this is very important because my brother and my sister are both alims and alimas, and I think the notion that you must either be, I don't have a PhD in Islamic studies by no means, but that doesn't mean that I'm too old to learn about deen. and to learn about, I started listening to Islamic podcasts. I started reading Islamic books in the last few months, where before I didn't think that that was something I needed to do. So my brother did an Alim course, and then he did his law degree. So I think that we must really change our minds around being Muslim, but also being professional. Because I think that there's a story around, when you send your daughters to study at the madrasa to become an alima, that the plotted and determined path is then marriage. And the same way, when you send your sons to go and study deen at the Darul Uloom, so there must be an imam of a mosque where they get exploited and they get paid like peanuts, and they must live, in the backyard of the masjid and not live a life that is of quality, because the community don't value that. The community don't value. They will pay for their kids to attend private school, but if you charge 500 rand a month for them to pay madrasa fees, I have a fat lot to say about that. So I really think that we must rethink and reimagine a life where, imagine, Rohingyans living in Myanmar were not allowed to call the prayer out loud. They were not allowed to practice Islam. Imagine. So when they came and they ran for their lives during the genocide, and I found them they found themselves in the camp. One of the questions we asked them, because I was part of the delegation in 2017, was, so how do you find life in the camps? And I mean, subhanAllah, you know what they said? They said, at least now we can practice Islam freely. So what is our excuse? What is our excuse? We are able to practice Islam freely, and we're embarrassed and we're ashamed to be Muslim when we are with our non-Muslim colleagues. I always insist on Allah, whether I eat it or not is irrelevant. But that conscientization that there's a Muslim person that's going to be attending a board meeting means that they must make the effort and get a halal meal from outside for me. I think that's how one. That's how you start to teach people about diversity, because that, diversity is a big buzzword in corporate South Africa. It's a big buzzword in transformation, but that doesn't only mean black and white. It means, what culture are you? What religion are you? What are your specific needs? Because your lens is going to be different as a Muslim as opposed to a non-Muslim, even sitting in a boardroom.
Yeah, good point. Tell me back to how it all started for you. So, I mean, you were in school in your region, and how did you get into law? I mean, were there sort of key interventions made? Because we all have those experiences that leads us onto a certain path. What happened to you?
Kids when they're in primary school, they want to be teachers, because I mean, those are the people we interact with. So, coming from a background where my parents were not formally educated, but my mom worked her whole life. She worked and she cleaned the house, she cooked the food. My dad was a carpenter, and I always laugh about this. This is a joke, because when I visit senior council and they have these conversations about, this one's father's a judge and that one's father's a cardiologist, and then I'd say, Albert, my father's a carpenter, and he'll say to me, no, nothing wrong with that. Jesus' earthly father was also a carpenter, so you mustn't do that. I find that joke to be quite comforting. But I mean, not that matters. I think the important thing here is we don't all come from the same type of dinner table conversation.
Yeah.
So my parents were in Jamaat, they were Tabligh. So for them, it wasn't about pursuing a life in this world. It was about pursuing, and education was religious education. There was not focus on academia or secular education. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing them in the least. And so, I grew up thinking I'm going to be a teacher, and then finished high school. And I mean, even that was a struggle, because my dad didn't really want me to go to high school. And then I finished high school, going to university. I basically just rocked up there. I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I just looked around and asked, well, my friends, what are you studying? And everybody said psychology. So I did psychology in my first year, and I studied 2 languages, but it wasn't something that resonated with me. And then I found myself in the law department, and that resonated with me, that sense of using a legal system. And I had attended an open day where they were doing street law, and at that stage, it was legal students giving education in the townships, like Dansani, on the Constitution. And that spoke to me. That said, that's something I want to get involved in. That's something I want to do. And as a psychology student, I can't do that. And then I don't even think I told my parents. I just switched to law the next year myself. And yeah, I am today,
And there you are. So you mentioned you lost your dad, well, what, 9 months ago. And inshallah, may Allah grant him Jannah. And I think you lost your aunt as well fairly recently. But considering what you said about your parents and the expectations for you, like, don't even worry about like school and varsity. The fact that you then did what you did, and then held up, and you still hold this relatively high profile position as the deputy president of the Black Management Forum. What did your dad say to you? I mean, in the last year or so, about what you've done and where you've been?
My dad wasn't much of a speaker. He didn't talk much, but it's a known fact in the family. He always said that I was his favorite. So I always felt loved, and I don't think my father ever said those words to me. I'm proud of you or anything like that. But I heard from family members afterwards that he had expressed how proud he was of me in terms of, the kind of work that I was doing. So it's very comforting to know. I think that, part of having your purpose and part of feeling satisfied about what you do, besides doing it for others, is that your own close family members appreciate that, and really, knowing that my dad died, even though he hadn't expressly told me to my face, I knew that he was proud of me. And I think that there's a notion in Islam amongst men, and I mean, patriarchy is not an Islamic concept at all. There was no gender discrimination during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, men and women were treated equally. I mean, if you look at his marriage to Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu anha, if it were not for her, the advent and the speed at which Islam spread would not have been that fast. She was one of his ardent supporters. He spoke about her to his other wives because that's how much he loved her, and she was the only one that he had children with. So, I mean, this idea that women must get home in the house, it's not an idea that's Islamic. It's not an idea that comes from Islam and from the practices of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, even if we talk about these concepts around feminism, I would go so far as to say that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a feminist. When we talk about concepts of male toxicity, we read stories about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam visiting his mother's grave and crying. So, I mean, men always feel that they need to be this macho kind of character. They can't show emotions. They must be this way and that way. It's not true, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as perfect as he was a human being, and he reflected the same values that you and I.
Absolutely.
As we have moments of weakness.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm afraid our time is up, incredibly so, and there's so much more we can talk about, but I'll leave you with this, just in 1 minute maximum. You've got an open canvas, listening, speaking to people, listening to you. I mean, tell them one thing that you just want to tell them.
One thing. I have many things, but I think because this is an Islamic platform, for me, what I've learned in the last few months, with several deaths besides my aunt and my father, is that the Prophet ﷺ said that you must take benefit of 5 before 5. We all know the 5 before 5, and that is your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your preoccupation, and most importantly, your life before your death.
And as you said early on, we plan for life, but also we should be planning for death. Tasneem Fredericks, really inspiring. I mean, it's just a snapshot into your life, really inspiring. And thank you for giving off your time. Not just inspiring, I think you've shared insights that, inshallah, we should all make notes of, and hopefully we can emulate. And that's really the essence of life. So thank you for your time, and most appreciated.
Shukran for having me.
There we are. Tasneem Fredericks, the Deputy President of the Black Management Forum in the Champion People feature. We'll do it again next week, okay? The last 3 days before we get to Eid. Coming up next, Juz 25 of the Holy Quran, brought to you by Sheikh Yasin Al-Dosari. Assalamu alaikum.